Hi, it's Liz Snedden. Let's have a look at reviewing questions. So these are some of the things that we want to avoid when we write questions, and so these are things we will look for when we're reviewing questions that have been written. So things like double negatives, jargon, acronyms, double-barrel questions, leading questions, and so on. So let's think about first what a double negative is. So this is when you've got two negative words. I don't hate. Okay, don't and hate are both negative words. So having a double negative, don't hate, that can get quite confusing for somebody to know how to answer. When we're using jargon or slang, so that means the language is only understood by a specific group of people. So, for example, there's a lot of Kiwi slang. It's understood by people that have been grown up in New Zealand. Okay, so other people outside that won't necessarily understand what we mean by the wop-wops. So if somebody doesn't understand something in the question, they are going to not answer the question. So it lowers our response rate. Acronyms, so this is when we use letters like LOL, abbreviations, and again, not everybody knows what these things mean, and so therefore our response rate will be lowered. So if we see acronyms in a sentence, we want to change that and write the words out in full. Double-barreled question. This is a question where it actually has two parts to it. And so that's when you're trying to ask people two questions within one, and that can be, again, harder for people to answer. A leading question. So this is a question that leads people to an answer. So, for example, tell me all the reasons why your teacher is amazing. That's leading you to just telling me the positives about your teacher. Whereas a neutral question, which is what we want, would be, what do you think of your teacher? That would be a neutral question. So if we get leading questions, our results are going to be biased, and we don't want that. We want to have accurate results. Overlapping categories. So if I said, did you spend between 1 and 5 minutes, and then did you spend between 2 and 4 minutes, those categories overlap. And so we want to make sure that we don't have overlapping categories, both for the data's sake, but also for increasing the response rate. Offensive language, obviously that's a common one for us to be able to understand. Any offensive language is going to lower the response rate. Any embarrassing or awkward questions, they need to be worded and phrased in such a way to try and minimize any embarrassment or awkwardness. So using appropriate language is part of that. If we've got too many questions, so you've got a 10-page survey, people will often go, oh crikey, no, I haven't got time to do that. Whereas if it's 5 questions, people might go, oh yeah, okay, it's only a couple of quick questions, tick, 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 yep, I'm done, I can do that. So if you've got too many questions, that will lower your response rate. So let's have a look at some examples here. And we want to first of all identify the errors and then look at how we could word it better. And this is what we want to be able to do for the assessment. So I might say, okay, well this one talks about being welcomed by staff and other youth. So it's asking me 2 questions within one. I have to think, was I welcomed by staff? Yes or no. Did I feel welcomed by other youth? Yes or no. And I need to answer both of those questions to answer this entire sentence. So this is what we called about a double-barreled question. So when we want to rewrite this, we actually want to separate them into those 2 separate questions. So first of all, did you feel welcomed by the staff? And then a separate question, did you feel welcomed by other youth? So that's how we would deal with double-barreled questions, is to separate them into 2 questions. This example here, what we've got is it's talking about community organising is hard. And from our answer options there, 3 of the options are talking about this course making you more prepared. So this is a leading question. Both the question is leading and the answers are unbalanced. There's not an equal number of more prepared, less prepared answers. So we want to fix both of these things. We want to remove the leading question because not everybody finds organising hard. Some people don't. And so we want to remove that. We just want to ask the question whether the leadership program is helpful or not. And when we come and look at the answers, we want to make sure there's an equal balance between positive and negative. So here is an example of what we could do. So it just asks us straight out, does it prepare you? And do you agree? Do you disagree? And we've got 2 that are on the agree side and 2 that are on the disagree side. So the question is no longer leading, and it also has a balance. This question here, does it seem possible or does it seem impossible that the Nazi extermination never happened? We've got 2 negative words in there, impossible and never happened. So this is a double negative question, and we have to think carefully about how we would answer a double negative question because it can be quite confusing. So what we want to do is we want to rewrite this question so we don't have this double negative. So do you doubt that the Holocaust happened? And a variety of answers. And that's all we need to do is just remove that double negative. So this one's only got a single negative. Do you doubt? This one here, more people have attended the movie Gone with the Wind. So this is a bias or leading question, in that we're being told more people have attended. So that's making you think, oh, well, this is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, oh, you're not on the good list. You're not on the popular list. So what we want to do is we want to remove any kind of judgment, any kind of lead. And what we want to do is just check, have you seen the movie? Yes or no? That's all we want to know. So that's what we will do, is have you seen the movie Gone with the Wind? Yes or no? So it removes that bias to it. Now, did you first hear about the bombing? And we've got a range of answers here. Now, these categories are what we call not mutually exclusive. So, for example, I might have heard about the bombings from a friend and I might have been at work. So I would actually select 2 of these categories. But the question itself says, did you first hear about the bombing? And to be first, you can only have one answer. So what we've got there is we've got categories that overlap, and we don't want that. We want them to be quite separate. So here is what we can do to reword that. Just look at, did you first hear about it? Friend, relative, or media. So remove lots of the answers and just have 3 very clear and separate categories. So this is talking about families and what type of family you grew up in. So it's talking about mum as a single parent, dad as a single parent, and both mum and dad. Now, when you think about how children are raised, are these all of the options? And I would argue that they're not all of the possible answers. There's a lot more options that we could have as well. People can be raised by their grandparents, for example. Could be adopted. There's a whole range of things. So that's what we would want to do, is to rewrite this there with a much more detailed list that actually cover all of the possible outcomes. What I actually might suggest is, just to make sure that there isn't something else that I haven't thought of, I'd quite like to add an other category at the bottom, which I haven't done here on the slide, but that's probably what I would do, is add an other in case there was something that I had missed. This one there talks about higher than single family density is acceptable to make housing more affordable. So there is a bit of confusion here about what does single family density mean, and whether we agree or disagree with this. This is actually quite an ambiguous question. And so if it's ambiguous, people are going to skip it. So if we reword this and say, right, is it acceptable to build housing where you can hold more than one family? Oh, I should say more than one family. So this is what we're trying to do, is just unpack what does this single density family mean? Well, it just means buildings where you could have more than one family. And so that's what we can do, is unpack that more. Thanks very much for watching.